We first started talking about kind of doing this episode, well, I don't know, maybe, 2-3 months ago, something like that, when we first started talking about it. But we were talking about the unmade Halloween 4 and really going into the original, well, I guess really the original concept of Halloween 4, the original script that was drafted for Halloween 4.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most interesting things about the Halloween franchise, for me at least, because I had heard about this script. Well, not even the script. I didn't even know there was a script, to be honest with you. I thought it was just a treatment. Because I think it's if you go to the Wikipedia page or somewhere and you're reading about Halloween 4, they talk about basically what happened was Halloween 3 came out. It was a disaster in the box office because no Michael Myers. The money wasn't flowing in, so they needed to bring Michael Myers back. John Carpenter and his team were still involved with the Halloween franchise. So he got Dennis Etchison to write a screenplay and come up with a new idea. And they had this completely different idea that it was a little bit more supernatural in tone. And, and I read like the basic synopsis of it. And that's all I thought existed, maybe that and a treatment. And then all of a sudden, I don't know when it was, maybe because of this new Halloween movie coming out, somehow in a message board or something I was digging around in, and lo and behold, there was somebody posted the script, and I'm like, what? I didn't even know it existed. So I downloaded it instantly and read it. So this is a really fascinating part of the Halloween lore.
When you had first mentioned it to me that the script was out there, and I wasn't really too in tune with the story before then, and I remember when we first started talking about it, whenever that was, I read a little bit into it, and then when we decided to do an actual episode around it, I was doing a little bit more digging into it. And yeah, that's the same kind of thing that I came up with was this Dennis Etchison. He had written some novelizations for part 2 and part 3, I think it was.
Yes.
And then Carpenter said, hey, how about we do this? How about we work on this thing? And yeah, like you had said too, I had read originally that it was just a treatment, but then actually it turns out there was a script. And then I was reading earlier today too, which I thought was kind of funny, was this Dennis guy wrote this script and gave it to whoever it was, Deborah Hill and John Carpenter, I would assume, or gave it to whoever, and probably thought that, hey, I'm going to make all this money. They're going to make this into a movie, and I'm going to be the guy bringing Michael Myers back. And then the thing I was reading earlier today, which I couldn't find it again, but supposedly he had heard that, yep, they're moving forward with Halloween 4, and he went and like had lunch with Deborah Hill or something, and Deborah Hill was like, oh, hey, and by the way, me and John sold all our rights off for Halloween, and your script wasn't part of the deal. They're moving forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is exactly what happened. Yeah, because at this point, see, Carpenter, one of his things, I'm sure we've talked about it in previous episodes, was he never thought there was a story beyond the original movie. It was, it was kind of a one and done for him. And then he agreed to do part 2 because, the studios, the success of the first one, and he was like, okay, I'll go ahead and do this because they're keep, asking about it, and they want to make another movie. So he kind of begrudgingly did Halloween 2, and he didn't direct it. He just wrote it and was served as a producer, and he did direct a few scenes in post-production, but and then Halloween 3 came, and he kind of gave the reins over to Tommy Lee Wallace as the director. And I think he just did like the score and again like executive producer or something like that. But then come time for Halloween 4, and at the time of Halloween 3, you wanted to do like they were thinking like, let's just make a horror movie, like kind of an anthology where it's always something different based on the themes of Halloween. But then Halloween 3 was the first one like that. It bombed in the box office, so you're going to do Halloween 4. But Carpenter wanted to do something a little different. The concept of this film is basically, that Michael Myers is gone, and like the town of Haddonfield has banned Halloween, and the theme is basically the more you try to repress something, the more the more it starts to come back. And so Michael Myers is kind of like, and throughout the script, and it's in its own way, this is very reminiscent to me of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. I don't know if you caught that.
I did towards the beginning, definitely, and then there's a few things throughout it that kind of have a similar feeling to that. It's kind of funny because we've touched on that before on here when we've talked about, Friday the 13th ripping off Halloween and then those two kind of going back and forth and stuff. And it's kind of funny then you have this one that comes out 10 years later and then they're kind of ripping off A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it very much feels like A Nightmare on Elm Street. Actually, the opening scene takes place the night of the original Halloween, and it's the parents of Lindsay Wallace, the little girl that Jamie Lee Curtis is babysitting. They're coming home from their Halloween party, and they pull up to the front of their house, and there's cops and all kinds of stuff going on, and the mom's freaking out. She's, because her daughter's in there. And she goes up to the door, and then she turns around, and everybody's gone. So it's kind of that surreal, kind of dreamlike thing. And then she knocks on the door, and the door like kind of bends, and it becomes like a membrane, I think is how they describe it. She goes into the house, and she looks up and sees Lindsay on the top of the stairs, and then Lindsay splits open, and the shape is like kind of appears from within. And it's very, very dreamlike. And then, like, I think something like blood's dripping off the ceiling, and it like pours on her, and then it ends up being a dream, and she wakes up. But to me, and the thing I thought about this script that was really cool was that this is the story of Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace as teenagers. The two kids that were babysat back in the original Halloween. And I thought that was such a cool twist. But it does very much feel like the way those two characters were written. It's very much like Nancy and Glenn from A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I thought it was like, wow, this is like totally like and this is again, this script would have been released or around the time of there had probably already been a couple of Elm Street movies out there.
There's definitely some similarities between those two. I mean, it goes throughout the whole movie or the whole script that way, because even when you get, not to jump too far ahead, but even when you get to the very end of the script and, some of the stuff that happens at the end, you're kind of like, I mean, it's, if they would have made it, I don't know if it would have went over very well with Halloween fans, just because of having that supernatural feel, because that's one thing they never really did with Michael Myers. That to the benefit of who's ever in charge of the Michael Myers Halloween franchise at any given time, that was one thing they never did with Michael Myers, was they never really made him supernatural like Jason ended up being and how Freddy kind of was. Because that was one of the other things too that I was curious about with this one, because me and you both had kind of said like, whoa, it's kind of got a weird like what was the term I used?
Cerebral.
Yeah, cerebral feel to it, and very Nightmare on Elm Street like. And I was wondering to myself when I was reading it the first time was how much of not only Nightmare on Elm Street is going to be in here, but also Friday the 13th, which was huge at that time. I mean, well, this would have been Friday the 13th Part 6 came out in 1986, so you probably had 6 and 7, so maybe Nightmare or maybe Friday the 13th was kind of falling out of popularity a little bit by this time, so maybe they weren't really like, oh, we'll just leave that alone. Nobody cares about that guy anymore.
This one, it definitely seemed like they were leaning more towards the Nightmare on Elm Street kind of vibe for this script. Again, the whole supernatural thing, him kind of appearing. One thing I thought was kind of interesting too that I didn't really I didn't catch. Oh, I caught it when I read it, but I didn't understand at the beginning. But there's a scene where the shape comes out and kills somebody, and he puts his hand on him, and it says he has 3 fingers. And I remember thinking, oh, that must be because, he burned up in Halloween 2 and he must have lost some fingers from that. But then, like, towards the end of the script, they're saying there's like a part in it where he, like, those fingers grow back, and you're realizing, oh, okay, I get it. So he's like kind of forming and coming to being at the more people he's killing and the more people are becoming afraid of him. And that was like, to me, that was like straight out of A Nightmare on Elm Street. It seemed like that whole, like, the more, fear Freddy was able to get in his victims, the more he was starting to come back. And that, that goes through the whole series, I think, for the most part. Like, towards the end, I mean, there was some real weird supernatural stuff towards the end that I wasn't a big fan of this script, but I don't want to get to the end yet, I guess. But it was, it was an interesting script to read. I will be honest with you, though. Now, the Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, that was produced in 1988, I am not a fan of that film. I remember liking it back in the day, or accepting it, but as time has gone on, I have really, it's one of those films that I don't like. I guess, like, as I get older, I've kind of pulled back a lot on the sequels of the Halloween films. Like, the Halloween and Friday the 13th are 2 very different franchises in the sense that, like, the Halloween franchise, I love, like, the first movie. I think it's excellent. And then, like, the second movie I think's pretty good. And then I'm kind of done with it at that point. Like, I've seen them all many, many times. And I used to like all the sequels and this and that. But as time has gone on, it's been like, no, I'm just done with the sequels. I only like the first one and the second one, just because the second one kind of feels like the first one. Halloween 4, to me, I think they messed up a lot with that film, basically because, for one, they got the mask wrong completely. It just looked terrible. I just can't get past the mask. I don't like the whole keeping going with the whole bloodline thing where Michael's always after family members. I thought it was a bad idea in part 2, but I kind of accepted it because it was like, well, they needed something, but then to keep it going and going and going, stop being scary at that point, which is another reason why I'm looking forward to this remake, because they're, retconning all that stuff. But so I was like, when I heard about this being like the possible version of it, I was like, that might actually be kind of cool. Now, I will say, though, that the script, in it, the way it was written, the draft that I read and we read, and I probably the only version out there, was a bit of a disappointment. I don't think this film would have been very good had it been produced based off of this screenplay.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I don't think it would have at all. It would have. It's weird because you could throw some of those same elements into, well, I mean, obviously A Nightmare on Elm Street, like we talked about, but you could throw those same elements into, even possibly a Friday the 13th movie, and you would kind of be like, okay, some other of the horror movies, like, I don't like Child's Play. I mean, if some of the stuff happened with Child's Play, you would just be like, sure, that's fine, whatever, or Pinhead or something, or whatever, you would accept it, but I think, well, I don't think you would accept it if it happened in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, but.
Oh, though that's gone off the rails so many times already in that franchise.
I don't think the whole supernatural thing fits at all with Michael Myers. I almost think that if this would have came out in the movie theaters, I think it would have gotten just ridiculed by fans back in, I don't know how that would have happened in 1988, but I'm sure it would have happened some way.
Yeah, I think it would have been I don't think it would have done well, because Halloween 4 is, if you look at, like, basically the produced version, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, is one of the more beloved sequels. I mean, people put that one way high. It's like kind of like, if you look at kind of the average Halloween fan, you've got, most people would say that the original Halloween's their favorite, but then for a sequel, and we're talking not zombie, but the original series, it's always like a toss between Halloween 2 or Halloween 4. So I think, obviously they succeeded. And it's kind of funny because I just was recently read something too, that they said that with Halloween, every time they did a flip in that series, it was like extremely profitable. Like, okay, so the first Halloween did really, really well. And then Halloween 4 did really, really well when they brought Michael back after part 3. And then when they did H2O, and they kind of did that thing where they kind of retconned it and no more this and that. It did that one did really, really well. That was like really high in the box office. And then Resurrection didn't do that well. But then when Rob Zombie came out with the first remake, that did really well, but his sequel didn't do as well. So they're thinking that this new remake is going to like be one of those, it's going to be another one of those flips where they kind of change things up and then people are going to go crazy about it. But yeah, so the Halloween 4 that we did get is a fan favorite for the most part. Again, it's just, for me, it just didn't work. I wasn't a fan of the way Michael Myers was portrayed. It just didn't seem like, in my head, how he should be. But then again, I've always sort of thought that Nick Castle's portrayal was always the Michael Myers. Even Dick Warlock in Halloween 2, I liked what he did with the character, but it always did kind of fall flat compared to how it was portrayed in the original. So actually, I thought that I was like really excited that this idea came up, that this Halloween 4 existed. Like somebody had, like, I never, when I found out about this, I was thinking that this is probably the direction I would have liked to see the series. And to be honest with you, after reading the screenplay, it definitely seemed like something I could see John Carpenter being attached to. Like I could totally see him being part of this, like his team, and like, Dean Cundy doing the lighting and all of that. And it felt like it was like kind of like I don't know, it seemed like to me, it reminded me, in the tone of this script, reminded me of The Fog, where it was sort of like there's some good stuff in it, but it's not perfect. It's not excellent. It could be better, but it kind of reminded me of that. Like I could totally picture like Carpenter's directing in this film. And there was sort of some of that supernatural stuff in it as well. And it just seemed like it would have been an interesting take on the material. However, I don't think it would have done very well in the box office.
Yeah, I wonder if it would have came out, if it would have been the end of the Halloween franchise, actually, because after the failure of part 3 at the box office, and then, I think if you say that, hey, Michael Myers is back, you're definitely going to get some people back in the theaters, but when people are going to go like, hey, but yeah, Freddy Krueger Myers.
Right, exactly, yeah. But some things that were good about this script were a few things that I thought were great. Well, Sheriff Brackett is back. Deputy Hunt is in this, so it kind of follows right from Halloween 2. So it does feel like an organic take on the characters and brings you right back into Haddonfield. And in my head, I was kind of picturing it like being filmed in Pasadena. Whereas with Halloween 4, it didn't have that feel to it. And probably a lot of that had to do with the fact that Carpenter's team was no longer involved. So it just seemed like a departure from a lot of what we had known. So I like that. The one thing about this film, though, that I think was again, the whole idea that Halloween was banned and Haddonfield won't allow you to celebrate Halloween, and you have to go past city limits to go if you want to go get Halloween decorations or whatever. It was kind of cool and all. When Michael Myers appears, I don't know, like the kills were very, like there was nothing interesting about them. Kind of like, again, like The Fog, where The Fog is a pretty cool movie. I like it, but the kills are very like mundane. There's nothing that sticks out when you think of the kills in The Fog. And that kind of reminded me of this. It was like, the first one where the teenager, when she gets killed in the pumpkin farm, it just seemed like sort of not all that original, not all that interesting. And then the kill with the couple at the convenience store, like the guy's closing up shop, and then he goes and starts making out with his girlfriend in the back room, and the Shape comes in there, and it just seemed like he was kind of like he's all of a sudden back, but we never really get to know what he's about, and it was sort of kind of weird in that way.
There's a couple of the kill scenes that you're not even really, almost not even sure if, like, oh wait, you have to like go back and reread them to, oh okay.
Yeah.
But the other thing that, at least my initial thought with this, was there was a lot of character development and background given on Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace in the first probably half of the script, I guess, to where it almost seemed like it was almost overkill for a horror movie. I don't know if you guys had that feel too, because there was a lot of it when you're reading it.
To some degree, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and because I mean, I kept thinking like, oh, where the hell's Myers at, man? Let's go. Let's get the shape in here. Let's get some action going. Come on, I don't really care.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that. They do go into a whole, like, especially Lindsay's background with her family and how her mom doesn't want her to be around Tommy, and like, you know, they're basically trying to repress her memories of what happened in 1978 when Laurie was watching them and the shape was attacking them. But one thing I did really think was kind of cool about this script, and I forgot about this until just recently reminded me, was Marion, who was the nurse in the original film, and then she was in Halloween 2 as well. She was the one who tells Michael Myers, she's like, or tells Dr. Loomis that, you know, we've got this sealed envelope and there's this file that you never saw, and it turns out that Laurie was his sister, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyhow, she was the nurse in the first two movies, but now she's like the head psychiatrist at Smith's Grove in this film, or in this screenplay. And basically, I thought this was kind of cool, was that like they kind of reversed the thing where it was basically like they make it sound like her understanding was that Sam Loomis was the insane one, and he had just had become obsessed with Michael Myers to the fact that where he was so paranoid and fearful and crazy about the whole thing that he actually turned the kid into the killer. I think they almost allude to the fact that there may have been a chance that Michael Myers didn't even really kill his sister, and that maybe something else happened, somebody else did, and they kind of accused him of it, and then he ends up in the mental institution, and then Sam Loomis being like this guy who's always like ragging on him and like, you know, you're the killer, you know, you better say something, you haven't said anything, and like basically made him crazy. So it was kind of an interesting like reverse on it, and I guess it kind of goes to the whole concept of the screenplay. Like if you try to, you know, push something, suppress something, it ends up growing. So it was like, you know, it was almost like Loomis may have been the one who created Michael Myers just by his insanity and obsession that he was dealing with. So I thought that psychological element was pretty cool.
Maybe that's the reason why John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were like, screw this, let's get rid of this, let's just sell it off.
Well, no, Carpenter wanted this. He wanted the screenplay.
No, I know. I was just like, obviously they didn't watch the opening scene to Halloween.
And I can see how like this would be like one of those scripts that they would not want to, like the studios would be like, yeah, this isn't going to work. We're not going to do this. But I kind of wish like in an alternate universe, it would have been kind of cool to see this, had this have been produced, how it would have turned out. Because, and another thing I really liked about this script too, which is really weird, is like there's this little scene of dialogue in Halloween 2 between the couple of the nurses in like the break room, where the one nurse, and I can't remember her name, but she's talking about how like so and so saw Michael Myers like walking behind the Lost River Drive-In, and it's the nurse and a paramedic, and the paramedic's like, oh come on, that can't be true, you know, blah blah blah, or whatever. And I always thought that was really cool. It's like, yeah, so there's this old drive-in movie theater somewhere in Haddonfield, and Michael Myers was hanging out back there. Well, anyhow, in this script, the writer took that and ran with it, because the whole ending of the film is like based in this drive-in theater where they're like doing, like there's right outside of the city limits of Haddonfield, there's this drive-in, and they're playing like a triple feature of horror movies, and it's kind of cool because they said like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Fog, and something else. I can't remember what the third movie was. They're playing these. And so the final act of the film is all in this drive-in, and Michael Myers basically, like all the teenagers go there to, you know, make out and watch horror movies because Haddonfield won't allow it. And he basically kills everybody, and like it turns into like a cemetery, like, you know, basically a graveyard. But then again, that whole part, like isn't done very well. Like, it's not written very well where it's interesting because it just sort of happens and then you're like, oh, everybody's dead and we didn't really see what happened. But the one part of the end that I was a little bit like, where I think they took it too far and it was kind of like, that's not very, that's getting a little off the beaten path here. Was anyhow, all the cops come to the drive-in and they kind of corner the shape and they're all shooting at him, and as they're shooting at him he's like growing and he becomes like, I think like 12, 13 feet tall.
Right. Yep.
That was kind of like, that's a little off. That part to me was like, what are we doing, a Marvel movie here? But then again, that goes back to the whole like concept of like a Freddy Krueger, because you could totally picture that happening to him.
That is the one thing, like I said before, with Halloween and Michael Myers, is they never did anything with the supernatural stuff. There's always an explanation for why. Well, I shouldn't say there's always an explanation for why he's alive. I mean, he had both of his eyes shot out and he burned to death at the end of part 2, but then he had both of his eyes intact and was just fine at the beginning of part 4. But
yeah.
At least in some of the other sequels, even in Resurrection, they kind of explained what happened at the end of H2O. The other thing that's interesting with Halloween movies, which goes into play with this one, unlike some of the other big ones, A Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th to some degree, is the Halloween movies, they always have specific dates for when stuff happens. So like, Halloween 1 happened and Halloween 2 happened. That was on 1978. And then this is October 31st, 1988. So like 10 years later. So they always play, exact dates.
Yeah.
With the stuff that is pretty cool. The one thing I did like about this is, like you were saying before, is, this is telling of Lindsay Wallace and Tommy Doyle's story from the original movie, which we kind of got sort of that. I mean, Tommy Doyle came back in Halloween 6. I don't think Lindsay Wallace was ever really mentioned. She
has I guess it's not 100% confirmed, but she is technically, I think, in Halloween 4, the produced version. She's like Rachel's friend. Like, they pick up Jamie in the car and take her to the Halloween store.
Oh, so it must be one of those things like where they say like, "Oh, hey, Lindsay."
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like a kind of like an Easter egg, but I don't know if you're fully thinking it's that the same Lindsay, but I'm not 100% sure if it's her or not. But definitely the character's name is Lindsay.
That makes sense. But yeah, I mean, Tommy Doyle's character is definitely in part 6.
Yeah.
As I was reading this, I did, in my own mind, kept comparing it to the produced version of part 4. And there are certain elements that I think maybe actually made it into part 4. And some of this might be a stretch and some of it might not be. But especially when you get to the very end of the movie and they have this big, like, OK Corral shootout at the drive-in theater. That to me was like, oh, well, that's kind of actually, I mean, minus the whole, like, the shape absorbing the energy from the bullets and kept growing 8 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet. But I mean, that's how part 4 ends, is he gets blown to pieces by was it the FBI or SWAT team or something?
I think it's just the Haddonfield cops.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, maybe it was the, like,
I think it was the FBI. Yeah, because I mean that's kind of when they were starting to do the whole.
Yeah, and I think
the Man in Black and all that stuff, and then all you come to find out that the secret society's involved and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly why. Like, I was going to say the exact same thing about the ending, where they do shoot them down just like they do in Halloween 4, which was they may have taken that and they may have just said, oh yeah, well, why don't we just end it that way?
I enjoyed reading the script. It was fine reading it. Didn't it's not like it was the script, so I mean it doesn't really take you that long. It's almost one of those things where you wish you could read it and not have something to compare it to. Because the entire time I'm reading it, I'm comparing it to, oh, well, okay, so Halloween 4 is this, and this is Halloween 4. And
Now, for the record, you are a fan of the produced version, right?
I am, yes. And don't worry, everybody, we're going to recap all of this Halloween 4 stuff when it comes to October. So, spoiler alert for that episode. I guess we know who's going to be giving that one a thumbs up and a thumbs down. But yeah, I am a fan of the original Halloween 4. That is one of the... I still am not sure if that's the first big horror movie that I saw kind of unedited by myself, or if it was Friday the 13th Part 6. But it was right around that time frame that I saw.
A lot of people saw Halloween 4 before they saw the original Halloween, and that was kind of their intro to Michael Myers. So
no, that wasn't it for me, because this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. So when Halloween 4 came out, I mean, there was kind of I remember this, and I'm sure you remember it as well. There was kind of a marketing blitz for this movie. I mean, it was...
Yes, there was. Big time.
It was everywhere. And I remember we used to get the paper all the time. And so there would be these giant, like, half-page, like, Halloween 4 promotions, coming to theaters, whatever it was, May, or whatever, October 31st or whatever it came out. And me and you, had been, we'd already seen the Halloween 1 and 2. I think we probably saw Halloween 3 at some point, and we were like, what? Wait, huh? So, but I mean, because I think when Halloween 4 came out, I think we both were like, oh, we got to see that.
We were like, what, 5th, 6th grade or somewhere around there when it came out.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. I remember, like, on cable, whatever the TV Guide channel was, where they showed, like, all they show is, like, what the schedule is for cable, and it's just scrolling up the whole time. They always played, like, the trailer or TV spot or whatever it was for Halloween 4. It was, like, such a big deal back then.
So I remember, Halloween 4 coming out, and then, it was only whatever a year later, and Halloween 5 came out. Mm. Man, so good.
There was one other thing I wanted to mention about this. Oh, crap. What was it?
You gotta start taking notes.
Wait, hold on. It's coming to me. Nope, can't remember. I guess one thing, too, to toss in there, I know we kind of said it before, but the guy who wrote this script was the author of Halloween 2 and Halloween 3, the novel versions of that, which I've never read any of the Halloween novels. I know there's 4 of them. There's, they stopped at, I don't think there was a novel past part 4, but I've always wanted to read that, at least the first 2. But
yeah, and that's the thing with these horror, like, novelizations back in the day. I remember, I think it was, you'll have to help me out with this one. It was Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, I think. The one where the bike becomes part of the guy. 4 or 5.
That's 5.
Yep.
That's 5.
So, and I remember I had that book, like a paperback version of that book, and I read it before the movie came out. I have read stuff about novelizations of, like, Halloween movies, and then there's supposedly a bunch of novelizations of, like, the Friday the 13th movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially I think the one that I kept coming across was the novelization of, I think it was Part 6, where there's reference to, like, Jason's dad in the, like, where he comes to the grave or something. So, but anyway, like, trying to hunt these novels down now, it's, like, nearly impossible. So,
well, they're on Amazon, but they're hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, so if you have a copy of these books, if you could make them, like, into like ebook form, would be great for the rest of us, so we could get a hold of them.
I'm surprised they never did a reprint for Halloween, just being that it's such a successful film, but they never did.
You can find, I think I have, like, do I have all 3 of the original Star Wars movies, like, novelizations? I think I might have all 3 of them, like in paperback, that I've picked up like at thrift stores for like a whatever, 75 cents a piece or whatever. But yeah, these ones, you can never find them. And it always, you were just saying, and they go for like hundreds of bucks. I remember I bought that Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5 one at like wherever. And it was probably like $4 or something, $5 back whenever that was. And I probably read it, and it probably got thrown away.
Right. Yeah, now it's probably worth like $500.
Probably. Yeah, and I read that thing in a night.
I don't remember the Elm Street books. Like, I don't even, for some reason, that's not ringing a bell. The Jason ones I looked up later on, like, as an adult. I guess, like, because Freddy's like one of those characters that I haven't been digging too deeply on as I did with like Michael and Jason. But ultimately, I'm going to have to give Halloween 4, the Etchison script, a thumbs up. And I'm doing that because, again, I don't think it was the best version. I think it could have been better, to be honest with you. But I give it a thumbs up because when I look at it, I say to myself, wow, that would have been a really cool John Carpenter film. Like, whether or not it was a Halloween 4, maybe it was like just like its own offshoot film, I think it would have been kind of a fun thing to watch and have in your collection all these years later.
Yeah, I don't know where I sit on it. Like I said before, I actually enjoyed the script. I read it a couple of different times because we read it whenever that was, back in like, I think it was like January or December or something when we first discovered it. And then in preparation for this, I read it again this past week. And like I said, it's an easy read. There are parts of it, being a Halloween fan, being a fan of the sequels for the most part up until, actually it's kind of funny because unlike you, I am a fan of the first, well, I mean, I don't even consider Part 3 a sequel, but I am a fan of Halloween 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 4, and 5, and I like the producer's cut of Part 6, and then after that, I'm not a fan. I don't like Resurrection, I don't like H2O, I like the zombie movies, and then I guess we'll see about this new one, but with this one, when you're reading it, like, there's some stuff that I'm like, oh, cool, and then there's other stuff I'm like, what? I guess I'll give it a thumbs up just in the realm of that if you haven't read it and you are a Halloween fan, you probably should read it. I mean, again, it's a script. It'll take you, if you actually sit down and read it, it'll probably take you an hour and a half, if that. As a movie itself, I would say if it actually got made into a movie, it probably would be a thumbs down, unless it went through multiple rewrites, which I would assume it probably would.
This definitely needed a lot more work and a few more drafts before I think it would have been ready to be filmed. There's a lot of things in it that don't completely work. And I remember now what I was going to say earlier. The reason to me the original Halloween worked so great and the sequels always fell flat was because there was this claustrophobic type of element to the original that was never recaptured. Basically, in the original film, Michael Myers escapes and he's, goes to Haddonfield and nobody knows where he went and what he's doing or what he may be doing at all. Like, he's, he killed his sister when he was a kid and that was it. Now he's escaped and now he's in Haddonfield, and the viewer knows what he's doing based on, okay, he's stalking these kids and then he like obviously kills them. He's not like a household name or like, everybody doesn't know that he's out there and all of that. And that's why the original, I think, is so special and works so well, because it's very like it's in the neighborhood and, there's this madman out there and nobody really knows except us viewers who see him like pop in and out of the frame of the film. Whereas the sequels, everybody knew about him, and he's, like going to the produced version of Halloween 4, he was a household name. It's like like basically most of the kills are, there's a cops and FBI or whoever like looking for this guy, and it just doesn't have that same feel of like he's this kind of boogeyman hidden in the shadows. Because at this point, when you're doing the sequels, it's like he's so well known and everybody's looking out for him. Whereas in the original, Loomis is like, don't tell anybody he's out there, keep it quiet or everybody will be looking for him. And so it's just like Loomis telling us who he is. And then the sheriff like saying, okay, well, I trust your judgment. So let's just keep it quiet and keep, patrolling the streets and see if we see anything weird. So I think that's why it works so well. And I that's what I'm hoping for this new movie coming out, that it kind of brings it back to that tone. But even that, I don't know if it can do that. Well, this film, like obviously the whole town knows about him, and that's why they shut down Halloween. So it sort of goes to that thing as well. But that's why it's more supernatural, more cerebral. Like we said, it's a little kind of a different vibe. But that's my take on it.
The other positive I will give this one goes into, current times with everything else anymore. If you are a fan of the original movies, the first two, this script is actually full of what all the hip and trendy kids call Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff when you're reading it and you're like, like Lonnie's in it and all these other things. And you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I look it up. It's just, I think if you look up Dennis Etchinson's Halloween 4, you could probably find it relatively easy. I don't remember if you sent me a link for it or not.
I think you found it your
yeah, I think I did find. Yeah, I think I did. You just go to a bunch of different places. Like if you look just, you go to like michaelmyers.net or heck, any of them. I think if you go to bloodydisgusting.com or any of them and look for like John Carpenter's Halloween 4 or Dennis Etchinson, you'll probably get a link to it somewhere.
Oh, another Easter egg I thought was really cool in this is they basically, like in Halloween 2, the Ben Tramer character, in the original Halloween, there was this character named Ben Tramer, and it was the guy that Laurie had kind of a crush on, and Annie was threatening she's going to hook her up with him, and Laurie's really shy and doesn't want to do it, and trying to talk her out of it. Well, anyhow, in Halloween 2, Ben Tramer is the character who puts on the false Michael Myers mask and crosses the street and ends up getting hit by a police car and goes up in flames and dies. And they think that's Michael Myers, but the mask he's wearing is basically like it's the same mask, only it's like a yellow hair and like a bluish face. Well, anyhow, the Ben Tramer mask is in this script, which is kind of cool for an Easter egg for you hardcore fans, where they kind of talk about. I don't remember how it's worded. I should go back and look for it, but like basically, I think they say like a blue Captain Kirk mask.
Yeah, there's references to William Shatner masks.
So that was cool. So I thought that was kind of neat, but. It's definitely worth checking out. Another script maybe you and I could talk about in the future. The other unproduced Halloween script is Halloween Returns, which was going to be that was what they were going with until obviously this new script that the movie's been filmed already. But that one was really good. I really liked that script. I had some problems with it, but I'm a fan. I'm going to have some, but I think that would have been kind of a cool one. And actually, I think this new movie might have pulled a few things from it.
All right, guys. So I think we're going to wrap it up, and then we'll be back next week with something else.
Awesome.